Hi, Szarka from Magpie Gemstones again. I am going to show you how to crimp the other side of a necklace. We have a fantastic video already done on how to crimp beads that hold, is what it's called. So go check out all our other videos, and it's there, and it covers a lot of information. But I received a number of emails from people saying, okay, fine, I figured out how to do the crimp bead, but on the other end of the necklace, I'm having a really hard time getting the crimp bead to either butt up against the beads, or I'm making it so tight that when I'm done with the necklace, it won't bend. Neither is a good thing. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. Let me move this bench block. We don't need that in our way. And so I took some 49 strand 0.24 size beading wire, and I beaded these gorgeous Kingman nuggets up. Gorgeous! They're over at Magpie Gemstones. Go get some. And I've already done the crimp bead on one end. Now, as I've said in the other video, quite often when I'm doing heavy stones, I will do 2 crimp beads on the end. That's usually true. This time I did 1. There's crimp beads that are longer. These are 3 millimeter long. There's 2 millimeter long, and there's 1 millimeter long. And then there's the width. I usually buy the biggest diameter, and then I adjust that, but you can get different sizes diameters for different sizes of wire. And if I'm only going to do 1 crimp bead and I'm going to cover it with some kind of design, I'll use the 3 millimeter long crimps, and that gives me a really long, nice crimp. 2 millimeters is what everyone usually uses. So, and especially if you want it to go inside of a bead cap, you have to, a crimp bead cover, sorry, not a bead cap, and that is one of these dottings. These little beads that you slip over the cap and pinch it. You're going to want to use the one that, of course, fits inside of that. You don't want to use a bigger one. Okay, so that's covered. Here we have our necklace, and we have an end that is undone. So we slip the crimp bead that we want to be using onto that wire, so it's right up against the beads. See that? And then this is how I do it, so hopefully you can watch really closely to see how I go about doing this. I push it up a little bit so that I have some space, and I hold that with my thumb. I take a pair of round nose pliers or chain nose pliers, and I take that end and I put it, now you want to put a chain on there or whatever, do that, string that on first, go around that, and head into the crimp bead. Now you see that? Can we see that? Okay, now you do not want this wire to cross this wire and then try to crimp it. You will end up with a crimp that will come undone. Okay, so I'm holding those 2 wires so they stay parallel with my thumb, and I have this huge loop, and I have all this space between the bead and the crimp bead. I'm not so worried about this right now. What I'm worried about is getting this loop smaller. So what I do is I grab the side that doesn't have the loose wire, and then sometimes I use my other pliers, sometimes I use my fingers. I'll use pliers this time so that my fingernails aren't in your way and you can see what's going on. I grab that loose wire, maybe, no, I'm not going to, let's try that again. Nobody said this is easy. It's kind of like herding cats. Okay, I can hold it here as well. And I pull this down. Maybe. Pull this down. Okay, so now I'm making this loop smaller and smaller. How big do I want the loop? I want it about that big on my pliers. So I pull, and there I have it. This wire is not crossing the other wire. I've pulled, I have the loop the size that I want it to be, but is it too tight against the beads? Well, we won't really know. Now, if you're keeping your necklace like this, and you're using fairly large beads, and you tighten it right up, here, I'll show you what happens. Let's tighten that baby right up. Okay, so you're like, yay, I'm done my necklace, and then you try to put it on, and look at it. It's like so tight, it looks like it's gonna burst out of its pants. You don't want that. So, test it. Go see before you crimp that bead. Test it to see what the looseness is on how much give you have on the strand. So I'm going to pull it out a little bit, make the hole a little bigger, and then I'm going to push that crimp bead up to make the hole smaller. And now I have this gap. See the gap? Now the size of this gap that you're going to require depends on the diameter of these beads. If they're tiny beads, not a problem. If they're big honking beads like this, then you're going to have a problem. Then what I do is I lay my necklace down. Does it have enough give for me? No, I'm not happy with it. So I'm going to pull that wire out just a little bit more. And I'm going to push that crimp bead up to make more space. And I'm going to keep doing this until it's the spot that and that is about the looseness that I want. Then when it's hanging, there'll be a little tiny bit of space, but not bad, which can be covered with a bead cap. You don't want to call it a bead cap, you want to call it an end cap. Or you can just leave it. It's not that much space. What matters is that when it's on the neck, is there space? No, there's no space when it's on the neck. Okay, so then I let go of that, and then you just crimp your bead like you always do. And I'm going to quickly go over how I do it. Of course, the notch part, the second hole, there's a top hole that doesn't have a notch, second hole that does. Use the second hole that does. Put a dent in your crimp bead. And then I always go a step further at this point, and I give it a little pinch in the middle to make that dent even more pronounced. Go from behind the dent with the round part of the pliers, pinch it flat, and then I pinch them together just a little bit more gently. You don't want to break the crimps, you don't want to cut your wires or anything like that. I take my cutters that are not my flush cutters for my wire, sterling silver wire or fine wire, because you can ruin them cutting this heavy steel wire. I get right up in there and I give it a snip. Now people say to go back through another bead, and somehow they think that that will give them more security in their crimp. I don't see how, because the crimp is where the crimp is. And over time, that wire that you put through the other beads works its way out and starts to poke people. I like to get it really tight, right up against the crimp, and then either cover it with jump rings or cover it with something else. Use a different kind of crimp that looks good when it's finished, or just cover it like I do with this. And when I put the crimp bead covers on, I rotate my pliers around and kind of gently work it into place from all sides so that I don't mush it. When I first started, I had a lot of problems with mushed crimp bead covers. And there you have it. Now it's ready to add a clasp, and it's, let's see, might have to add an extension chain too. No, it's pretty nice. And that's it. If you have any other questions, drop me a line, and don't forget to go look at us at magpiegemstones.com. Bye.